We decamped down to a studio just outside of Bath called the Hall spring of that year to record Strangeways, Here We Come. Turned up at the studio, Mike and Andy and Johnny turn up, get everything, you know, set up, plugged in, expecting Morrissey to turn up. Doesn't show. It's not a big deal though, you know. So that night the boys are, you know, just jamming away and playing around, you know. But one got the impression that perhaps they, you know, they were kind of half expecting Morrissey not to turn up anyway. So you know, they just kind of got drunk basically and had a bit of a laugh. Anyway, following day Morrissey did turn up, and we just got cracking into the record, and the vibe was good. You know, I got the impression that perhaps some of the songs hadn't been worked on as much as they had been on previous albums. You know, they hadn't been played live or anything like that. They hadn't been rehearsed at sound checks or anything. They really were like, you know, the latest songs that Johnny had sent Morrissey on a cassette, whatever, and they were yet to work out with a particular key or, you know, tempo or whatever. So it was a little bit of like, you know, how many bars of this do we play? Oh yeah, and then how many bars of that part do we play? It was still kind of getting sorted out a little bit. But the vibe was good in the studio. There certainly was no kind of feeling of like, this is it, this is the last album we'll ever make together. You know, there was a good atmosphere in the studio. I think it's the best album, personally. Morrissey, as I said, you know, he's not a musician in the sense that he could say, like, I want these guitar parts played this way or that way, but he had a very clear understanding of what he liked and what he didn't like. And if something went down as an overdub and it didn't meet with his approval, you know, it would pretty much kind of finally be pushed right down in the mix, or if not, you know, cut out altogether. The only instance I ever had where there was a kind of a disagreement, as it were, between the two in the studio, I was working on the last album, and on the track I Started Something, and I've been working with Johnny on some guitar overdubs on that particular song, and put them down on a rough mix on a cassette and took them over to Morrissey at the cottage, which was next door to the studio, and played it to him, and Morrissey kind of listened to it and said, don't like that, you know, no, I don't like those new parts we've put down. So I went back to Johnny and said, you know, Morrissey doesn't like this, you know, and Morrissey and Johnny. It was the first time I ever heard Johnny kind of like really kind of get angry, and it was like, well, fuck it, you know, let him come up with something. So you know, that was the only time where Johnny, I felt, and Morrissey had kind of come to a kind of impasse, as it were, in the studio. But up till then, you know, it had always been fine, absolutely. You know, most of the time, very much in approval of each other's parts. No band is a complete democracy. You're always going to have someone that's actually, you know, the leader, as it were, it's pulling it along and kind of like giving them direction or leading which way they're going. As I say, the best bands have a natural balance within them. I'm not saying there's workers and there's kings and everything, but that you do get a balance where, you know, generally someone is the one that's guiding the way. Obviously, the job as a producer is to make sure that that person doesn't get too big and completely overshadows everyone else. You've got to make sure that everyone's strengths come through. But I would say most probably in general, much has been said about the fact that the Smiths were kind of at each other's throats on the last album, and you know, and it was all falling apart. It wasn't the case at all. They were generally in the studio, they were a very happy bunch, and it would only be occasionally there'll be a little bit of tension because Morrissey might kind of been particularly moody about a particular part, or just in general, you know, wasn't particularly happy, and it'd be just down to you to try and find a way of working around that, really, you know. There was a lot of respect, I think, between everyone in that band.